Hey there, folks! Welcome back to Good Morning Chaldea, where three weebs tell you what the fuck fate is. I'm Cole.
Jamick.
Jacob. And a special guest this week.
Just call me Whiteo.
White.
Yeah,
White
so for White Day, Fate Go has, a White Day event every year that they call it the Chaldea Boys Collection. And so we thought we would bring in our
resident boy.
Yes, we thought we would bring in our friend White, who does not actually watch much Fate, does not know much about Fate, and we're gonna fix that.
We're going to fix him, if you will.
Oh man.
So, our topics today are going to involve trying to describe Fate and all of its weirdness to him, but also to have him try to explain Fate to us beforehand.
What he understands of it thus far.
Right.
I've absorbed a little bit from interacting with you three.
Through weeb osmosis.
Yeah, I've seen a couple memes, I feel like I've got some of it in my head somewhere.
Alright,
He
so...
occasionally checks in on our Fate chat in the Discord.
Alright, so first off, just sort of describe Fate to me, just generally what it is.
Okay, well, let's see. Fate, actually, it's an acronym. It stands for Frick. Anime totally exceeded my expectations for being stupid. And that's the most important thing to know about Fate, as I understand it. It's...
You're not wrong.
Essentially, but, yeah, Fate is the franchise term for, the basic story of Fate is always the same. There is this magical item called the Holy Grail. Whoever gets the Holy Grail gets one wish. That's
No
it.
holds barred, yeah.
And worth
Whatever
noting... Go ahead.
of whatever they want.
Yeah, worth noting, this is not the actual Holy Grail that, held Jesus' blood. This is just a cup that they call the Holy Grail because it also performs miracle-like abilities that aren't actually miracles.
Okay, I guess that explains why there can be a new one each show.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's two in some...
Yeah, there's a greater grail and a lesser grail sometimes.
But anyway, and to get this grail, you have to... Spoilers.
It's not spoilers.
You have to sacrifice 7 heroic spirits to it. And to do that, you have 7 mages summon 7 heroic spirits who are legendary characters from fiction, King Arthur, Alexander the Great, what have you. They duke it out, they die inevitably, and eventually that summons the Grail, and the last person standing gets the Grail.
Gets the wish, too.
Gets
yeah,
the wish.
exactly.
Mhm.
It's very climactic and epic.
Yeah, it's basically a battle royale, actually.
It is actually a battle royale.
And typically the master will have a wish going in, as will the servant, because they're typically trying to fight for the Grail as well, which, in some stories it's... Well, actually, I don't know if it ever really works out, because part of the whole idea is that, you're gonna have to sacrifice your own servant at the end, but no one really knows that, and that's only in some of the stories, to be fair.
The Grail is kind of a dick.
Got it.
Yeah, you can really see that in Carnival Phantasm, where,
Tycoon!
where the Grail has a personality, and he's just this giant evil asshole who tries to give murder.
I don't know what you're
implements to
talking
everybody.
about. Seihai-kun is very generous with giving all sorts of different friendship tools and other names for knives to people.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So,
The Monokuma version.
exactly.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Monokuma of the Grail. It's a weird personification. Anyway, so let's do a quick overview of Fate's timeline, various stories and stuff. Whiteo-san, could you give me a brief idea of what you think might have happened in this world that led us to this, these events.
And what sort of Fate series you know about as well.
Right, yeah, which series,
Yeah, so Fate began in the year 0, which for some reason not an actual year. There is no 0 BC or 80, but that's a different story. But it began in the year 0, which is outside of our timeline, you see.
I see.
And from there, we enter this state of flux where all of these various timelines are coexisting.
Right.
And they all come from that year 0 when the cataclysm happened.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And
You mean like the one in World of Warcraft?
yeah, that's exactly the same cataclysm actually.
Wow.
WoW is just another Fate series.
Hashtag it's all connected.
I can confirm this actually as someone who plays WoW.
Yeah, see, I'm telling you, it's the truth. So after the cataclysm, which was caused by the merging of every soul in existence, they were scattered throughout the dimensions, and it turns out that they're still bound to this original point in time, which is why in the year 1242, the Grail first entered one dimension and just messed stuff up and said, "Hey, fight for me," and people were like, "Yeah, I feel like I'm drawn to that," so they all fought for it, and then Fate Go happened, which stands for Fate Global Offensive. That's when things got really weird because Valve tried to make a game based off of it, but they lost the rights. And it turns out that all the servants actually they can't use their guns in the Fate shows and the Fate game because Valve took that part of the copyright. So it was a big messy divorce that happened. And after that, more and more stuff happened and people died. And then we are brought to
But
today.
did they die when they were killed?
No, it turns out people don't die, actually. They just go back to the year 0, and then they just wait to be resummoned.
Huh.
Now that we're all crystal clear on that,
Yeah.
thank you.
I like this timeline better.
Have you seen
Honestly, this is
any,
a little more coherent than what it actually is.
Oh, good.
Have you seen any Fate shows, or have you played any games or anything?
We watched together part of one show, didn't we? We
I
saw
feel
like
like
the
we
first
saw-
episode.
We saw the first episode of the extra anime at one point. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
a mess.
So there's the answer. That's my experience watching Fate.
Wow. Okay, one episode of Fate Extra. Here we go. All
Okay,
right.
so should I go over the media franchise or the actual in-game timeline?
Is there even really an in-game timeline that matters?
It's
But no one really
a
cares
little-
about it.
Okay, I'll mostly go over the media timeline.
Yeah.
So
Release order like a normal person.
Yeah.
this so the first Fate thing released was the visual novel Fate Stay Night. This took place in the Fifth Holy Grail War, held in the city of Fuyuki, in Japan.
Yeah, I got
Really?
Just in case you weren't clear. And this visual novel has 3 routes based on basically which girl you end up with.
It's all the girls.
Best girl, second best girl, or worst girl?
Pretty much.
And we'll leave that up to the audience to decide what we mean.
Because we all have different opinions.
Three.
Based on the art I've seen, I agree.
So,
Start spamming Sakura shit in the chat.
basically, they all end up differently, but loosely the same, and in general, they are all considered canon, all 3 routes.
Okay.
Just because they don't really have a specific canon. Anyways, so then after that, they made another thing called Holoratorexia,
We
which
don't talk
takes
about
place. No, we don't really. But basically, it's a
nothing about
weird.
Holoratorexia.
It's a weird sitcom story almost that takes place in a time loop about a couple years after the Grail. Honestly, I'm not even that sure. It's just weird.
It's not
no
terribly
one
easy.
really tries to mess with that, but basically it is also somehow fits in there. Then there is a prequel called Fate Zero, which takes place in the Fourth Holy Grail War, 10 years before Stay Night.
Okay.
For any
Are you with
new
me
Fate-
so far?
Sure. Let's say yes.
For any new Fate fans out there, this is the place to start the series. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
I don't
Fate
care what
Zero is a good place.
I don't care what
to-
anyone else says. I know Fate Stay Night is the first original released work, but the way the good anime are released, Fate Zero is actually the first of the good anime. So watch that first, and then the other ones will make more sense.
That is actually, yeah.
You're saying don't watch it in release order,
Correct.
and
No.
also don't watch it in chronological order.
No, do watch it in chronological.
It
order.
is sort of
What do
chronological.
you mean it's not? How is it not chronological?
Because
Don't-
now we're getting into the alternate realities.
That's okay.
Anyway.
let me explain something really quick about Fate. Fate is all alternate realities. Everything is its own universe where nothing
Yeah.
else matters in it. None of the other events make any difference whatsoever, except for the events of Stay Night, Zero, and Hollow Ataraxia.
Yeah, that's where
Everything
they're-
I've described just now is its own sort of thing.
That's kind of the canon, like, building block that
Yes.
everything is built on.
Hilariously, a lot of the other series have elements of those in it.
Yeah, everything else just sort of builds off of that and is in a different timeline. So, one of the, probably the most well-known one after that is Fate Extra, which takes place in, now that was a video game, like an RPG basically, that takes place in an alternate future where the moon is a supercomputer and the Holy Grail War is a tournament arc where a bunch of the world's best hackers get
Called wizards.
yes, the world's
As you do.
best coders and hackers go to the moon to construct digital bodies to participate in this tournament and are matched up with servants, which were the personalities recorded by the moon during their lifetime.
Yeah, Fate Extra is definitely the most screwed
It's a very
in the
extra
head.
show, or whatever.
And
it's
yet,
called, right?
somehow a bunch of the same characters that were in Stay Night show up here.
Yeah.
Servants and
And actual people.
and actual
Green
people.
is there.
Reen is there.
Why? Who knows?
Shinji's there. Archer is there as a different but somehow still the same person.
Archer, as in the Archer.
The Archer from Stay Night.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So after that happens, then there is Extra CCC, which is the sequel, which almost is like its own side story, which basically says everything you were doing in the first game doesn't really matter because here's what happens immediately after. Everyone is back, and you have to solve a whole new thing.
Quick intermission. Let's have White-san here explain to me what the differences in the normal Fate series and Fate Apocrypha are.
Oh boy.
Fate Apocrypha is the non-canon version written a couple centuries later, and it was determined that there was just too much legendary development to actually fit in with the other series. So it's kind of like, yeah, some of this is probably true, but none of it really matters.
Somewhat true.
Oh, really?
Kinda, yeah. So,
I guess it's aptly named then.
real quick before we get to Apocrypha, though, there is one more thing worth noting, which is CCC Foxtail, which was a manga that was made based loosely on CCC, but it features like new characters and stuff that they couldn't fit into the actual game, and it's somehow even weirder. But you know, we're not going to worry too much about that one. So
I won't.
Apocrypha is another alternate timeline. This one splits off directly from the sort of main timeline that I explained first off with Stay Night and so on. But basically something goes wrong during the Third Grail War, the one that happened right before World War II.
Isn't it like during World War II?
It's right beforehand
They show
because
pictures of them in World War
one of
II.
the masters was working like with the Nazis, and he's the one who like goes rogue and
That's-
steals the Grail And
Let's not talk.
big surprise, his servant was Finn McCool, who really sucks. Anyways, so in Apocrypha, this basically the weird extra servant who replaced the Berserker in the Third Grail War, instead of it being an Avenger, it was a ruler, and that somehow changes everything and results in a 7-on-7 full team Grail War.
It turns into a team deathmatch.
It is team deathmatch.
Team deathmatch.
Team deathmatch.
Except his fate. So of course it didn't work that way.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. It ends up being more 8-on-8 and then 7. It's weird.
So here's what I'm thinking now. There are a lot of other Fate products.
Yeah, there's
and
Strange
most
Fate,
of them
there's
are not
Requiem.
even interesting to mention because
A lot of them
most
aren't
people
even
have-
in America.
Right, most people
But-
in America haven't heard of
But
most of
wait,
them.
isn't there that cooking show?
There is the cooking show.
This is the least useful and worst thing in the series. That's
Not
true.
at all. It is
It
actually.
might be the worst, actually.
No, that's Fate Go.
Yeah,
Go.
yeah, right.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that yet, and
We're
not.
not getting to that. There's no point talking about Fate Go. Fate Go
And
is a
I
game
also-
where you play with Fate servants.
Yeah, basically, it's
That's
the mobile
the extent
game
of my
that they
knowledge on it.
made, which takes place in its own alternate reality, where
They're all alternate.
you observe the other alternate realities and all this other stuff. It's honestly,
So it's like
Fate Goes.
some-
It's its own special
It's
mess.
some master alternate reality that looks at all the others.
There's no real explanation. The point of Fate Go is fan service. All of
Yeah.
it is not even just like the booby kind, but like just fan
like
service.
fan service.
It's fan service. Everything
Here's
in
what the
there,
fans want.
like it has a good story because Nasu wrote it, and we'll get to Nasu later. But it has a good story. But at the same time, 90% of the content, apart from the main story, is all just this fluffy nonsense that relates to one series or another. And it's amusing and it's interesting, but it doesn't really make sense in any context. You just like warp there and like, whoa, look, I'm in Apocrypha now. Wow, that's weird. You know.
Essentially.
Well, it almost all takes place in its own thing, but it has the servants from all the different ones. And even if I think there's actually an event coming up that does specifically go from one of the timelines, but that we're not going to get into that. So,
So yeah, like I was saying, nothing really else important to say about the series. There's a lot of nonsense.
there's a lot of one-off things that we don't really have time to get into, but yeah, it's
it really does not matter.
it just goes downhill from here in terms of being complicated and weird.
Yeah. So effectively, all the shows in the series are this one long string of messes.
And I didn't even get into Last Encore.
Right. So and we have a lot of stuff we want to talk about regarding inconsistencies and weirdness in the shows. But we're going to do that in a follow-up episode next week. For now, I want to wrap this episode up with a quick story, our end segment, Rate Up is a Lie.
Rate Up is a lie.
We originally call it this because first of all, it's a meme in our community.
It's obviously,
but we almost called the show
It's a
Rate
big
Up,
meme.
so we're like, we have to have this in there somewhere. So we decided to go with that.
Bit of trivia for you there.
And our storyteller today of why Rate Up is a lie is Jacob.
Yeah,
So-
that's me. So basically, I've had some weirdness. I had some disillusionment right at the beginning of my.
You've had some
Fake
curse.
I have.
You've had curse EX.
When I started playing this game, I really wanted Ishtar because she is Reen. And that's basically the only reason. So I started playing the game
That's how we
almost
got you
like
there.
half the reason because of I knew she was coming up soon. I'm like, all right, I have like a month and a half to get ready for this, so I'll start playing the game. And I did, and I saved up something like 200 St. Quartz at the time, which to me seemed like a lot, and I guess kind of still is a pretty decent amount, but compared to some numbers you get up to. I rolled them all, and I didn't get her. I didn't really get a lot of good stuff. I got a few decent things, but I didn't get her, and I was very frustrated. I was like, well, I might just quit. So I didn't, unfortunately, for my wallet. That
In too
is.
deep.
But after I failed to get her, I waited a month, and then they put it on the freaking like New Year's banner again for
Which
some
I don't
reason.
think any of us were expecting.
I didn't know that was gonna happen, and I had saved up like 100 quartz by then, just randomly, because I don't know, I didn't want any of the other things that badly, and I got Merlin on one ticket, so
I think you were thinking about rolling for Musashi.
Mate, you're right. I was going to
did-
roll for Musashi.
We did the Musashi ritual roll
That's
on New Year's,
right.
yeah.
I was going to roll for Musashi, and then I'm like, wait, Ishtar's on the new banner. I'm just gonna roll on that. So I roll on that, and after 100 same quartz, I get her. But the trick here is that was the cursed event, because after rolling her, since then I've probably spent something in the realm of another, I want to say like 150, 200 plus and like a boatload of
Quartz.
tickets. Yeah, of course, yes, not dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And a boatload of tickets from all the challenge events and stuff lately. And I've gotten a single gold servant in all of that. And that is a single copy of Steno.
After his first copy of Steno, which was like just before Ishtar.
Correct, so I'd already gotten one. So it was a duplicate copy of Steno after about another couple hundred. So in all my time, in all my 600 plus Saint Quartz and 100 tickets or whatever it's been, I've gotten just two. I've rolled just 2 5-stars. And only a handful of other 4-stars, and nothing for the last few hundred. So I've had like a weird on and off relationship with these things.
So I gather that's not good.
No, it's pretty bad.
pretty
it
bad.
feel I get the odds are 1 in 100. So if you're rolling 50 times or whatever, you think you have a 50-50 chance, roughly speaking. It's not how it works,
exactly.
Unfortunately. But
I mean, I've seen worse, but we'll get
Oh,
back
yeah.
in. We'll get into that the next time I'm up.
insanely bad. Anyway, I've had it on enough because sometimes I get I've got the one server that I wanted the most after a lot of Saint Quartz, but then not much else, except for Merlin. So I really still can't complain. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. Would you like to take us out of here, Cole?
Yes, so thank you all once again for joining us. We will see you again next week, hopefully. Hope to start shitting these out weekly. So, until then, may your rolls be ever golden. Howdy.
Bye-bye, guys.
I like the little Kentucky note there.